everybody. So welcome to the beginner RMS training. I'm Blair with the RMS PMO. I want to thank everybody for coming today. Where you are going to be able to take questions throughout the training. Of course, there's also the chat or the Q&A section on the WebEx there that you can also add in questions. But we'll also have question time during various sections of the training today. Note that everybody, we do have an RMS YouTube channel where you can also get a lot of various trainings, both beginner and advanced, on that web channel there. Again, thank you for coming today, and hope that it's beneficial. I'm going to hand it off to the presenter, and yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Jennifer. I'm going to be one of the presenters for today's presentation. We're going to go over the basics with how to use RMS. And we are not, however, going to talk about the district or office policies that could be associated with your district or office. So keep in mind, we're just going to talk about how RMS is actually used, not what your specific district or office is going to be required for you to do. So always check with your policies for best business practices. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of different options here. Okay, so we will be talking about the general navigation and the administration. And before we move on to submittals, we're going to take a quick little 5-minute break. So that way you guys can take care of some business while we transfer over to the next submitter or presenter. At the end of each of these sections, we're going to leave it open for questions. So if you have any questions at that point in time, you can go ahead and ask them at that. And if you have any questions during the actual presentation, there is a Q&A section in here where you can post your questions, and there are people standing by to answer those questions for you as well. Now, just as a reminder, these videos are always recorded, and then about 5 business days after the recording, we do post them up onto our YouTube channel, so that way you can go back and review them at your leisure. So, getting started with navigation. With RMS navigation, these are the things that we're going to be going over during this presentation. A lot of the slides are going to have a lot of extra information that I may not actually say when I'm giving them. However, we do provide you with copies for those slides on our website. If they are not on the website at this point in time, they will be on the website very soon. So just go to our website at rms.usace.army.mil. Scroll down until you see the training section, and in the training section, there's going to be links to all of our presentations at that point. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about, and the first thing that you see after you've installed RMS, is the RMS launcher. Now, the RMS launcher is important because it is going to be the one that checks to see if there are any updates. Now, we do frequently update RMS to add more features, to correct any issues, and just to make RMS better for all of the users as well as more efficient. So it's very important that you make sure that the first thing that you see is the RMS launcher, and it looks something like this. So just make sure that when you log in, these are the things that you're looking at. Now, what you will see on this slide is there are also some helpful links for some common issues for how to update your launcher. So you can watch both of these YouTube videos. This one specifically is for government who has not had RMS installed on their computer at all, because there are specific steps that you'll have to take to get that done. So these will be helpful for you if you have a new computer too. All right, so here's a list of the common errors that happen with RMS launcher sometimes coming through. This one's actually not necessarily launcher related. This one is actually a Windows issue. Windows has a really hard time with multiple monitors. So this video link right here will help you fix that problem. So if you think a window is supposed to be opening and it doesn't open, go watch this video. It will show you how to fix it. It's really quick and easy to fix. But a launcher issue that you will see is disconnected. Your computer cannot connect to the following resources. This happens when 2 things happen. 1, you haven't logged into RMS in a long time, or 2, you've been in RMS for over a month and you've never closed it and reopened it. So if you don't actually open up the launcher, at least on a weekly basis, it's possible that you could get behind and the next time you go to log in, you can't log in again. But we've provided 2 links right here for you to be able to go through and fix that. Of course, if you can't get to these links for whatever reason, you can't find it, you can always give the help desk a call. We will be more than happy to help you walk through the process of correcting this problem. All right, once you've gotten to the login screen, this is what you're going to see. Now, some important things to notice up here, you've got some buttons that are up at the top. This one will take you to our RMS website. This one will give you the option to check for updates or to submit a support ticket, or it will also give you the phone number for you to be able to call the help desk for support. Now, one thing to note about this, if you choose the option to go to the submit a support ticket, it is going to open up to our JIRA service desk. Now, the issue with JIRA service desk is it does not it's not supported on Internet Explorer. So if your default web browser is Internet Explorer and you click on this button to go submit a support ticket and it says, can't be found, it's because it's in Internet Explorer. Open up Chrome, Firefox, or Microsoft Edge, go to our website at rms.usace.army.mil, find the link that says submit a support ticket, and it will redirect you to the correct page. Okay, the other thing to note is where you're going to be logging in. Sometimes what will happen is you'll see this reading smart card and it never actually goes through. Now, the only time that's really going to happen is if you've inserted your CAC after RMS opens up, which you guys probably won't have to worry about because you need that in order to log into your computer. So if that does happen, though, just click on this refresh smart card button and give it a few seconds, and then your name should populate here. Once your name populates from your CAC, then you come down here and you click on login, and it's going to prompt you for your PIN, and you'll be able to get into RMS. Something else that's useful, if you've tried to get into RMS and you can't get in for one reason or another, you can always come down to this button here that says Server Connections. You'll click on this button, it's going to bring up another view, and it's going to have a button that's somewhere down in the bottom that says Start Test. You're going to run that test, and it's going to go through a couple of different things. As long as you get green check boxes in 3 places, you're good to go. At which point you still can't get into RMS, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help you with that. If you have any X's, that means that something is down with RMS. If that happens, give us a call, let us know, and we'll let you know if we already know about it or we'll get it taken care of, so that way it's fixed. Another thing that is very important to take a look at is underneath the server connections. Let me zoom in so we can see this a little better. Here we go. You have a couple of different things that can also tell you which version you're running with RMS. So RMS, we talk about versions, we're actually talking about the patch level. Now, these are all of the updates that we put through. Currently, our patch level is 354. So obviously this screenshot, if you were to get that message disconnected, your computer could not connect, and you see that it's 328, and you know that the last release notes went out, said it was patch 354, you're definitely behind and you need to update your RMS in order to get back in. But usually when you call us and ask with that kind of question, we will ask you what's your patch level. So you can come down here and take a look. All right, the next thing is at the bottom of your screen. You have some important notices. Now down here, these are the dates with which CEIT GIO6 are going to be doing scheduled maintenance with RMS. Now, what that means is during these time frames, RMS may or may not be accessible at that time. So if you are working on the weekend that is a scheduled maintenance weekend, just be aware that it could be that if you can't get into RMS, it's probably because they're currently working on the system. And if you just wait, usually it doesn't last too terribly long. It can be anywhere from 15 minutes to a couple of hours, and then try again. You'll be able to get back in. Otherwise, wait until Monday and you'll be able to get in at that point. All right, once you get logged in, the next thing that you're going to see is the map view. In the map view, you will see down here, it will also tell you, let me zoom in so we can see that. It will also tell you what your patch level is, so that way you know what you're running, and it will tell you what your processing site is, but usually we'll ask you for your patch level. Now, this is where you're going to log into the district itself. Depending on which district you're doing it. Now, there's a couple of different places in which you can log into your district. You can either find your district on the map here, over in this upper right-hand corner, down in this left-hand corner, or you can go and pick it from the districts that show up on the left. Sorry, that's the right-hand side of the view. And as you can see, when you click on a district on that side, it will show each of the districts, sorry, divisions. When you click on the division over here, it will show all of the districts associated with that division down here at the bottom. And you can click on that to open up your district. The other thing to note is you will see, again, we still have the RMS website button, the RMS support button, and we now have this logout button. Before in the past, you may have noticed, if you were an older user, that there was a button here to log out and back out of to get to the login screen. We've removed that as it's been replaced with a logout button. Okay, so this is talking about some common errors. If you click on your district and you get an error message that log into, let's say, Albuquerque, failed. 9 times out of 10, that's because the permissions that you have for your contract for that district haven't been set up correctly, at which point you will need to contact your district administrator. Now, if the district administrator says your stuff is all set up correctly, then give us a call and we'll be more than happy to assist you with that. All right, once you get logged into the district and you have chosen your contract, the next thing that you're going to see at the top that is very helpful for you are the navigation buttons. Now, with these navigation buttons, I'm actually going to start over here on the left-hand side, which is going to tell you the name of your contract up at the top. And then your contract ID is going to be in these square brackets. Now, anytime you call the RMS help desk for support, we are going to ask you, what is your contract ID? This is the number that we are asking for because this number tells us what district you're in as well as what contract you are. Next to that, you will see that your contract number is going to show up. And then if you have a delivery order number, it will show up to the right of that. Now, on all screens, once you are in a contract, you will see the back button, the refresh button, the logout button, and the help button. However, these 3 buttons right here will change depending on where you are. When you first log into a contract, the only button that you will see is the government mode home button. When you go into a module inside of the contract, then you will see the government mode home and the contract selection. If you go into another selection inside of a module, then you will start seeing the contract menu option too, so you can go backwards. RMS does not have a save button. What it has is the back button. So if you are entering data into a QA daily report or somewhere else inside of RMS and you want to save that data, then all you have to do is click this back button and that data will be saved. The next button to pay attention to is this refresh button. Now, the refresh button is special. What it will do is it will let you know that there have been changes that have made to the contract you are currently logged into. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the changes are in the view that you are in, but if this little circle starts rotating, go ahead and click on that. Make sure you have the most current view of the contract, so that way you don't accidentally overwrite somebody else's changes or someone doesn't overwrite your changes. So when you see that circling, go ahead and click refresh to make sure you have the most recent stuff. If nothing changes, then you're good to go. If there are some changes, well, then you know that somebody made a change while you were working in it, and that's okay. The next button we have is the help button. Now, for the help button, this is going to be the same thing basically as the RMS support button on the login screen and the district screen. It's going to give you the option to submit a support ticket. It's going to let you check for the newest updates, and it's going to give you the phone number to give us a call if you need to call the RMS support center. And if you click on the government mode home button, this one's going to take you all the way back to the district. The contract selection button is going to take you back to where you see the list of contracts. So this is, excuse me, government mode home is going to take you to the map. Contract selection is going to take you to the first screen you see in the district. And then contract menu is going to take you to the screen that you first see when you log into a contract. All right, so after you've logged into your district, this is what you're going to see is the contract selection view. Now, what you will notice in here is that all the way across the top, there are a couple of tabs and things that will run over here. Now, this is beyond our scope of what we are going to talk about. Just know that this information, you're going to have certain permissions in order to be able to access those things. If you are going to be required to do that, I would advise you to either watch or come to our next advanced user training, because we will talk about these in depth for that. Now, if you're looking for a contract in here, one thing to keep in mind is there are two views that show up in this data grid down here on the bottom. The first one is display contracts, which is usually the one that will open by default. However, if you've gone in and you've changed it so that it's displaying the projects, it's going to change the view. And every time you go to log in, then you're going to see a slightly different view. So let me zoom in so you can see the difference. In the display contracts view, you will see that you've got the contract delivery order number, the contract ID, the title, the office name, and the stage. Now let's move it over and take a look at the display projects. Display projects is going to show you a project ID, a contract number and delivery order number, and the title, but the contract ID is missing. Also, the buttons here are different because in project view, you only have an edit view. Now, if you come back over to display contracts view, you have add, edit, or archive. So if you think you're supposed to be having something and you don't see it, come down to this bottom portion here and check to see which radial button you have checked, because more than likely what you're looking for is on the other radial button. All right, so actually this is one of those common errors that I was talking about with being in the wrong view for the data grid there at the bottom. All right, so I already talked about the tabs up at the top, but another nice thing to look into are these sort tiles over here on the left-hand side. Now, these sort tiles are labeled by various different stages of the contract themselves, and they will also tell you how many contracts are in each of those stages over here on the right-hand side. If you want to look at only contracts that are in a particular stage, then you can click on this button, and what happens is the data view that's in here will decrease to only the things that show up in this particular contract status. And this right here where it says all contracts will change to whichever of these options that you've chosen. Now, keep in mind when you're doing this, if you need to go back to all of them, then you need to go back and click on this all contracts. So that way what shows here is all of the contracts. Because if you have another contract that is not in that particular contract status, then when you go to search for it, it doesn't show up because it's not in that status. So keep that in mind. One other thing to note here, there is an ellipses button right here, which will allow you to limit the list that shows down in this data grid even further by office. Now, the nice thing about this one is if you only have access to a certain office, to contracts in a specific office, you can come to this ellipses button, click on it, and select the office from the office lookup button that comes up that you want to view the contracts for and click OK. And then that will reduce the number of contracts that show in this list. However, keep in mind, if you're going to look for a contract that is outside of that office, it's not going to show up because you have it set to only be in that office. You just come back to the ellipses button, click on it, and just choose the district, the highest district office that's in there, which is your district. Also, you will notice which one, there's another title right here that you can't see. That title will tell you which office you are currently displaying. And of course, you have your actions. If you have the correct permissions, you will have the ability to add, edit, or archive contracts. Now, again, you have to have the right ability in order to be able to do that. So if you cannot do that, that's okay. You probably are not, you don't have those permissions. If you think you should have those permissions, you need to contact your district administrator because they're the ones that who control who can do what, when, where, and how inside of RMS. Another thing to note is we have this lovely little export button. Now, this export button is going to export a list of what is down here in the data grid, and you can export it either as an Excel file or a PDF file. And my favorite tool, which is not highlighted, is this search box right here. I highly recommend that you use the search box because if you've got hundreds and hundreds of things that are showing up in your data grid, and you know specifically that it's something starts with testing office, then you can start typing the word testing in this search, and it will reduce the number of contracts that show up in this list and make your job much easier to try and find what it is you're looking for instead of looking for a needle in a haystack. Okay, the next section we're going to talk about is the favorite section. Now, you are able to set your contracts as favorites in the contract itself. So when you go into the contract, what you can do, and I will show you down here, once you're logged into a contract, there's a button in the upper right-hand corner underneath the Help Log Out and Refresh button that is marked as favorites. Once you click on that and you back out of the contract, it will now show up in this little section right here. You can see that there's only an option to have 4 favorites at a time, but it will show you the ones, the 4 most obvious ones that you've been in, or the 4 most local ones that you've been in. The other one to look at is your recent column. This is going to show you the last 4 contracts that you have accessed in the district and the order in which you have accessed them. So if you are always going into the same contract all the time, you don't necessarily have to open them from this data grid down here. If they're in your recents or your favorites, all you have to do is single click here, it'll open it right up. Or if it's in your favorites, single click on it here, it'll open it right up. Otherwise, if you come down in here, you just have to double click on it and it will open it that way as well. All right. RMS offers a variety of different ways to view data that are in data grids, such as what we saw on the previous page and such as what is showing up right here. Now, this one is set up with grouping. So this one is going to group by, in this case, the report menu, which happens to be admin, closeout, finance. These are the menus that these are the tabs actually that you see across the top of the modules, which is in about the middle of your view. When you first log into a contract, you have the administration tab, the finance tab, the closeout tab. That's what this is sorting it by. So you have the option of doing that. Now, if you're in a data grid view and you want to group that data grid by something, you can use your mouse, go to the column header, push and hold your left mouse key, and then drag it up to this gray line, this whole gray bar right here, and then let go. Once that happens, this is what you will get for showing up, and your view will change. Now, please note that any kind of change that you do to this area right here is only temporary and for the time in which you put it at that moment. The minute you back out and come back in, it will reset itself. And it also does not affect any other users who are currently logged into that view at that time. It is only for your view at that time that you set that. And when you want to get rid of it, there's an X button that's hiding behind our little arrow right here that you just click on that and it will return it back to the regular view as well. Okay, the other option that we've got is for filtering. I forgot about the sorting. Let me go back. Sorting, I apologize. The way to sort is if you go up to the column header, you're going to click on it one time to sort everything ascending by that column. Click on it 2 times to sort everything descending by that column, or click on it 3 times to return it back to the view that it was in the first place. All right, so you can also filter the information. You will notice that on all column headers, there is a little funnel looking icon. Let me zoom in a little bit, make that a little obvious. Here we go. So we have this little funnel icon. When you click on that funnel icon, it's going to show you everything that's in that column, and it's going to give you a couple of options in order to filter it. If it happens to be a number, then you can do a comparison if it's greater than this number, less than this number. Or if it is a text, you can say is equal to this text or has this text. I believe it says contain text or looks like or something to that effect. And then you can choose the option of having an or and an and statement here and then picking another filter option. Once you've set your options, you can click on filter, or if you only want to see something specific that shows in here, you can click on the checkbox and then click on filter. And then when you're done with that, click this X box to get it to go away. And it will change the view that you've got so that way you will see only what you picked in the filter. Now, one thing that you can note, anywhere inside of RMS that has a data grid, you can do the sorting, the filtering, and the grouping that we just talked about. And for more detailed description or a demonstration of that, you can go to our YouTube link that we've added right here. It goes through and tells you exactly what I was talking about, but it actually does it live for you, so you can see it happening as it's done. Okay, my search box favorite. So I'm going to reiterate this because I really love the search box because it makes my life so much faster when trying to find things. If you're busy and you have not a lot of time, this guy is your friend. He is going to make your life much, much better. So again, you can just start typing, and as soon as you start typing, this data grid is going to start reducing its numbers by what it is that you type in this search box. So if you know for a fact that you're looking for a specific date, you can start typing in the date. Now, please note that sometimes when searching for dates, it is a little delayed and sometimes it may not work. So it's best to do this on text or numbers. Dates are sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. Just depends on which area you are inside of RMS for that one. Okay. Exporting the data grid. Okay, I kind of talked about this, but we're going to show you what it actually looks like. When you click this export button, this is what you get. You get the option to export it to Excel, or you get the option to export it to a report. When you click on this Excel button, the first thing that's going to happen is a Windows file save is going to pop up, and it's going to ask you where and what do you want to save this file at. Once you hit the OK button, give it a couple of seconds, and once Excel has opened, it's gone through and extracted everything, and it's gone and saved what you wanted where you asked for it. At that point, you can go back to RMS and do whatever it is that you need to do from there. And remember, this export only works on the data that's showing in this data grid. So it's not going to show you anything. So if you're in the submittals, let's go to the transmittal log as an example. If you're in the transmittal log and you've got a list of all of the transmittals that are in review by the government, and you want to know some specifics about that stuff, and you choose the export thinking that it's going to give you all of the comments and all of the documents, no, that's not what it does. It only gives you the list of what you see right here. It's what you see is what you get kind of deal. But we do have some reports that can help with that. All right, on the report page, this is talking more about the grouping, and this is actually giving you a better description, because when you go to group something, you do see that there is a little message here that tells you how to group, and it tells you to grab this guy and pull it up here. So this is just a better screen for what I was talking about. All right, now, contract menu. The first thing that you're going to probably really notice inside of the contract when you first log in are these lovely little dashboard buttons that are right here across the top. These are the action items that are associated with the contract. Now, if you don't have any action items set up, these are always going to be green, and there's always going to be 0 for all of the numbers. However, if you have set up action items, you'll notice that there are 4 different colors. Green indicates that there are no action items that are past due. Yellow indicates that there are, I believe, low action items that are past due. Orange indicates that there are medium and possibly low action items that are past due. And red are high priority items that are past due and possibly medium as well as low. Just note that if there is a color change, you're probably going to want to click on either of these to find out what it actually is. I'll show you what that looks like. I believe we'll show you that in a bit. But keep in mind that it will tell you how many of each of those action items are past due by the numbers that show up in various different sections. And you have government action items, contractor action items, as well as my action items. Now, this my action items is based off of the logged in user only. So this, if it's for my user and I log in and I have action items and my friend who's sitting next to me logs into the contract and his doesn't show anything, it's because his user doesn't have anything, but mine does. So I have to figure out what was assigned to me and go take care of that. All right, so this is a little bit more on that view. What you will notice is there's a difference between what the contractor sees when they log into the contract and what the government sees. So obviously the contractor is not going to be able to see the government action items. That's not for them to see. All they get to see is the contractor action items and their specific action items that are associated with it. Again, here's some more information if you would like to read that at your leisure, and we do provide the slides on our website. Excuse me. All right. So to set up the action items, so that way you can get notified when something needs to be done, you will go to the, let me back up 1 second, to this one, there we go. From this page right here, you click on the administration tab, and then you go down to where it says action item control. That would be this one right here. And that will bring up, whoops, this view. So once you go in there, this is where you're going to turn on or off various different action items. And as you'll see up at the top, anytime you have blue squares that run up at the top, those are what are we called sort tiles. And by clicking on those tiles, what happens is it will change the view of the data grid to only display what was in that tile. And over here, it will tell you what it is it's actually displaying. So if you click on this high for government or contractor, that's going to show contractor, it's going to say contract action item control, government or contractor, and then it's going to say high. So you'll know which one is being displayed. And if you want to see all of them, you just have to make sure you choose all. If you only want to see the contractor high, then you'll click on this one right here. That sounded bad. All right. So with this, you have the ability to copy, enable all, or disable all, depending on how you want to have this set up. Now, the copy, I believe, comes from another contract, and you can do the contract action items that are set up in another one and just populate it in here. Or you can go through, single click on the item that you want to enable, come down to the bottom, and choose the enable button that's right down here, and just click here, and that will turn it on. Now, if you want to assign it to someone, this is where you do that. You click on this lovely little blue box. It's going to bring a staff lookup box, and you're going to choose the person that it's assigned to. If it becomes past 2, that person that you assigned it to is then going to have my action items show up in color. Now, we do have a more detailed description of all of this information that I'm giving you right now on our YouTube channel. If you go to our YouTube channel, which I'll show you how to get to at the very end of this, you will be able to update and take a look at that one. All right, here's some information on document packages and how document packages work inside of RMS. The only thing that I'm really going to say about this is document packages are pretty much everywhere inside of RMS. If you are logged into various different areas in RMS and you see this little icon down here, let me zoom in so it looks a little bigger. You see anything that looks like this down here, there's some kind of document package. You're just going to want to pay attention to some specifics about that, and I'll go into those details in just a bit. But this is some really good information for you, and I'm going to go over most of it here in a little bit, so I'm not going to read it right now, but you can go back and read it later at any time you want for future reference. Here we go. Here's a zoom in part. So when you see a document package, you have the option to add a new document package, edit the current document package, or delete a document package with these buttons that are here at this point. If you don't see anything in here, that means no document package has been added at the time. So you're probably going to want to hit the add button. Or if it's something that's coming from the contractor and they've submitted it to you without any documents, you're probably going to want to return it to them for corrections and say, hey, where are the documents? Please put them in the document package so I can go ahead and review that stuff. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Once you go into a document package, you will see this view right here. And this is what you see in almost all document packages. 99% of the document packages inside of RMS are going to look like this or very, very similar to this. What you will see up at the top is, again, you have your blue sort tiles with counts of how many of each of the documents are loaded. You will have the ability, now only the government has the ability to generate a letter, but this is using the word templates, which is discussed further in the advanced training. So if you want to know more about that, please come see our advanced training. You have your sign selected documents button, export selected documents. You can also save the documents to the file. This does pretty much the same thing as the Export Selected Documents button does. All of the list of documents that are in the document package will show over here. You can export the list of this data grid. You can add a document. You can edit a document by double clicking on it or single click and then click the edit, or you can delete a document. Now, if this is coming from the contractor, I would not recommend that you delete it. I would recommend you send it back to the contractor for corrections and have them make sure they put the right information in there. However, check with your district's policy to see which way it actually needs to be done and how to handle that. Now, if you accidentally put in a document that should not have gone in there, yes, please, by all means, use the delete key because we don't want to accidentally have stuff in there that you don't want going to PCF. Now, this is also how you get documents into PCF from RMS. Let's see here. We're going to talk a little bit more about that on another screen. But what I will talk about is down here, when you single click on a document, you will see a little bit of information down here at the bottom. And this is important because you have the ability to change the document title of any document that you upload into a document package. However, proceed with caution, and I would recommend you leave the first part on there, because by removing this first part, that will make it more difficult for a user later to come behind you and search the contract file for a particular document that is associated with something, because the beginning of the title, the prefix, is always talking about what it is, what specific item it is, and where it came from. And if you remove that, then it makes it much more difficult for other people to come in behind you and find out what's going on with your contract. So if you must update the title, only update the post part of it, not the prefix part. You also have the ability to mark these buttons right here, manually signed by contractor and manually signed by government. And now the possibility that you need to actually manually sign by the contractor is usually fairly low, but there could be times where you'll need to do that. Check with your district's policy on when, where, and how that would be something that you would do. The last things to note down here are, oh yes, and then the description. Or you have these lovely little buttons that are down here. Now, if this is a contractor document package that they have sent to you and you only have one button that says submit for review, that means the contractor did not finish the document package. At which point I would suggest you ask the contractor to go through and finish it to ensure that they've got all of the documents that they're supposed to have in this document package. And that way they can't make any changes while you're in the middle of reviewing it. And once you have decided that everything is good to go, you're going to click on this Accept Package button. Now, this Accept Package button is going to send all of the documents in this document package to PCF for your contract, and then it becomes part of the legal record. So make sure that you are ready for all of those documents to go to PCF when you accept that package. Also, make sure that if you need documents to go into PCF, you click that button so that they are actually sent into PCF. Now, if something's not right about it, then you've got this button over here to return for corrections. If you don't click this button for return for corrections, then when the contractor goes to correct it, they're not going to be able to do anything. They can't add, they can't delete anything in this document package. However, they can create another document package and put the information in there. Check with your district's policy whether or not you use the return for corrections button or force the contractor to create a new document package. And then the last thing down here at the bottom is the government review notes. You can add your review notes to this lovely little text box right here. Your contractor review notes will show up in this text box down at the bottom. All right. Adding documents to the document packages. There are 3 ways in which you can add documents to the document package. The first is dragging and dropping the documents from your File Explorer to this box right here. The second is dragging and dropping it from your File Explorer to this box down here. And then the third is choose Add and then choose from File System and selecting the appropriate file from your File Explorer at that point. And as you can see, these are the documents. You push and you hold on it, you click and you drag, and you drop it right in here. When your RMS icon gets over, well, actually, excuse me, when your cursor icon gets over here, it will change from, I believe it's like an X to a plus or something to that effect. But you'll see a change from when you're dragging this direction. I believe when it was here, you have a circle with a slash through it. And then when it comes over here, it becomes a plus sign. Same thing with down here. Okay. So this is talking about editing the attachments. So basically to edit an attachment, the only ones that you're going to be able to edit are things like Word documents, Excel documents, and editable documents. You can potentially edit PDF files if you have the PDF editor on your computer, though most of the time you're not going to want to edit the PDF files. It would only be like a Word document or an Excel document, and that would only be if it's a document that's provided by the government, because if it's something that's provided by the contractor, you really want them to be doing that kind of stuff. Okay, and again, remember, back is your save button. It is your friend. So anytime you want to save any changes that you've made, make sure you click on the back button. Okay, the next thing to note about this area is you have a couple of columns which will tell you the status of signature for contractor and government for those documents. Now, the only documents that can be signed inside of RMS are those that are PDF or Word documents. Note, if you sign a Word document, the Word document count will change from 1 to 0, and the PDF document count will increment by 1. So keep that in mind when we sign Word documents. Those documents are created to PDFs in order for that to happen. Now, there are 3 statuses that you will see with the signature. You've got signed, you've got electronically signed, and then the third one, which is not showing here, is attested signature attached. That means there was that checkbox that was down at the bottom for manually signing. That means that was done. So the user downloaded the document and either hand signed it on a piece of paper or scanned it back in, or they electronically signed it outside of RMS and then loaded it into RMS, and they had to check the box for manually signing because it was not done inside of RMS. Okay, and this is talking about the change between Word document to PDF document, which I did talk about. But what I didn't talk about is how you go about signing the documents. Now, with the exception of 4025s and QA reports, the way to sign documents inside of RMS is to open up the document package, click on the document that you want, and then choose this button that says Sign Selected Document. That's going to bring the option to choose which document you are going to be signing, and you just use this checkbox. And then you're going to choose the next, and it's going to ask you, where do you want the signature to be placed? Now, there's a column over here that will tell you which signature it's going to default to. Pay attention to that when you're looking at it before you actually finish the signing process, because you want to make sure your digital signature is put in the right place. So if it doesn't look like it's in the right place, there is an ellipses button. By double clicking on the field there, you click on the ellipses button, it'll bring up a list of all of the signature places that are possible. Now, if you see any signature places that say legacy, that's wrong. That will be removed from RMS if it hasn't already, but if you do see it, make sure that you change that, because that's not going to sign it in the correct place. That should be removed though. And once you click on finish, it's going to prompt you for your PIN or your password, depending on how you log into RMS. At that point, it is going to be signed, and you are good to go with that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions at this point in time. I'm going to be silent for about 30 seconds, and if I don't hear anything, we'll go ahead and move on.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Is hitting the refresh button basically the same thing as hitting the back button?
No, it is not. If you click on the refresh button, it is not going to save your information. What it's going to do is simply pull in the information that was recently saved by someone else clicking the back button.
Well, it seems to work the same.
I know it does seem like it does work the same, but it doesn't. It just, for some reason, seems like that.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, so we'll go ahead and keep going. All right, The next tab is the administration tab. We're going to speed up here a little bit because I am a little too slow today. I didn't have enough coffee, apparently. The administration tab. These are the things that we're going to talk about today for the administration tab. You can take a look at that at your leisure, or you can just follow along as we go. When you log into the contract, your default view is going to be administration, and these are the modules that are inside of that topic, and we're going to talk about most of those. So this one gives you a little bit of extra information about the administration module, things that you can go back and reference at your leisure when you have time. Go ahead and download the slides so you can take a look at those ones, but I'm not going to go over that right now. This is talking about all of the different modules that are showing in here again. And now we're going into the contract description. Contract description is the first one that you're going to be most interested in because it's going to give you a lot of information. So I'm going to zoom in on this. When you come into the contract description, there are quite a few things that you're going to have to fill out in order to get this contract ready to go. The ones that are most important are up here in this top function right here. In this top section, you need to fill out the contract title, the fiscal year, the short title, and very important, the contract number and the delivery order number. Now, this is important if your contract is linked to CFMS, because if the contract number, come over here, the contract number and the delivery order number do not match exactly what's in CFMS, then when you try to do any CFMS downloads, or if you've got information that's supposed to be pulling from CFMS on a nightly basis and it's not showing up, it's because they don't match. If they don't match, then what you need to do is you'll need to go to CFMS or have someone who has access to CFMS find out exactly what it looks like, dashes, slashes, spaces, dots, and put it in RMS in this section right here. At that point, then your CFMS downloads should work like they're supposed to. Okay. And some other information that you can put in here, which is good to have, is the information showing up in 5, 6, and some of this information down here. What you put in these boxes is going to be dependent upon your district's policy. And as you can see, there's a little bit more information over here about what I just talked about. You can go ahead and read that at your leisure. The contract status is the next module in the administration one. And the only information that we're going to be talking about in here is the status photo and the phases status issues. Now, this is going to be pulling from P2 as well as the things that are set up for the contract itself. And the contract status, this is going to be for all of the photos for the process of the construction that happens to be associated with this contract. Now, it is advised, I think it's also required, that you guys have to upload this at a specific set of intervals. And you can do that by uploading new status photo. You can save the file that's already there. And you can also take a look at the photo itself by making it bigger if you so desire. All right. Oh, we do have the monthly progress tab. So for the monthly progress tab, this is basically updated by the progress and the progress payments. Usually that's how it's done. However, you can manually update it by using this button right here, or you can copy from placement by using this button right here. Be advised though, this is not an immediate change sometimes. It will take anywhere from 24 to 72 hours for information that's been entered into RMS to update in this section right here, as well as this is pulled from the contract status sheet report for the contract. This is not updated immediately, but it does eventually pull from this kind of information. Using the copy placement, check with your district's policy as to whether or not that's something that you guys can do for your contract or not. All right, here is the description of the buttons for the contract status photo, which I kind of talked about already. And then when you go to the phase statuses, this is where you're going to see the cost time growth of what's going on with your contract, as well as any noted, well, you will have to enter the customer issues and the usage issues and when it was updated. Now, it's important that you update this on a regular basis, especially if you have this set as one of your action items to be done. And when you go in here and you write all of this stuff, if you don't update the date and you have the action item set up, your action item is going to say, hey, you need to update your phase status issues. It hasn't been updated in like months or whatever it happens to be. It's because you need to make sure you update the issue remarks as of every time you go in here and make some changes. Now, if your contract is linked to P2, those P2 information will show up underneath this, but before the cost time growth information that shows up down here. And of course, there's a little bit more information in the text section over here that you can take a look at. All right, contract personnel. If you need to assign user roles, well, not user roles, personnel to the contract, like the program manager, the resident engineer, people like that, project engineer, whatever it happens to be, usually that information is put in the contract personnel. And that's by using the add, edit, or delete button. Now, there are two different add, edits, and deletes in RMS. The first one was the one that we already saw, and it actually had the word add. So that makes it really easy to figure out. But now, this one is different. It's just a little plus sign, and it's very tiny depending on your screen resolution. So sometimes you just have to know that the one all the way to the left is the add. The middle one with what looks like a marker is an edit. And then the X is the delete. And it works just like the other add, edit, and delete options. You'll see the list of the users' names here. You will see their position title set to them here. And when you click on the add button, it's going to take you to a staff lookup field in order for you to pick the appropriate person. If the person you were looking for does not show up in that lookup field, please contact the RMS Support Center. We'll be more than happy to help you with that, but it should show up for you. And then, of course, all of the people available for that contract user role will show up down at the bottom. All right. So this is going through the process of clicking the add button. So you click that lovely little add button that was down at the bottom. Here is your staff lookup field. Again, your search box is your friend. Start typing in the person's last name to reduce this list so that way you're not looking for a needle in a haystack. And click OK. After you click OK, you're going to have the option of setting their position title as well as changing their name if you accidentally clicked on the wrong one. Now, anytime you see blue boxes that are long like this next to some title, that's usually some kind of lookup field. So click on it one time, it's going to open up some kind of lookup, whether it's a staff lookup or an agency code lookup or something like that. That is something to know about these long, skinny blue boxes. All right, so editing is going to be the same as adding, with the exception it's going to skip the staff lookup field and simply go to this field right here, which is the contract personnel edit view. And this is where you can change the name or you can change the position title. If you choose changing the name, then it's going to bring the staff lookup. If you choose changing the position title, then it's going to bring the position title lookup. And then once you click the back button for saving, it will update the fields right here on the previous screen. All right, if you have to delete a member because for whatever reason they're no longer on this contract, you single click on them and you choose the lovely little delete key. RMS is going to say, are you sure? This is just precautionary because sometimes we accidentally do things that we don't mean to, like we meant to hit the edit key instead of the delete key. So we give you this possibility of not making that mistake by saying, are you sure? And of course, after you're done, in this case, you don't actually have to use the back button to save, because by clicking this button, that is your save in this particular case. All right, next thing is the contract documents. Now, this is only for contracts that started in 238. So more and more, you're going to see fewer and fewer contracts that are going to have anything with 238 in them as we get further and further away from when RMS 238 was closed down. Now, if you did have a contract that started in 238 and there were documents loaded into the document packages there, this is where you will go to find that. Otherwise, you don't really need to go into the contract documents module. Next, all documents within RMS 3.0 can be found in this module, the contract file. Here's a list of all of the information that will go into detail if you want. You can read that at your leisure. I'm going to go to the next screen. Oh, when you go into the contract file, it is set up as grouping by default, and it will always show up as grouping by default when you come up in here. And as you can see, you have contract administration, correspondence, labor payments. Now, what shows right here is going to be dependent upon what documents you have added to your contract. So if your contract is brand spanking new, nothing has been added to it, you will see nothing in here. Not even these titles. None of these titles will show. It's okay. It just means you don't have any documents yet. Once you start getting documents into the document packages, then these will start populating. So say the first document package you put in a document is a correspondence. Well, hey, then the correspondence shows up. As soon as you click the add button in the document package and put a document in there, this will now show up in the contract file. It hasn't been sent to PCF. It may not have even been sent to the government, but it will show up in your contract file that it's already started. Deletion of documents in the contract file will delete them from the document package. So please be careful. Though we do offer the ability to add, edit, or delete documents here, I would recommend that you check with your district's policy as to whether or not something should be deleted from the contract file, because once it's deleted from the contract file, it is gone. Bye-bye. Now, the next thing to know about this area is you have these little arrow buttons to expand the view so you can see the documents that are showing up in the various different sections. Now you can see this is grouped by two different things. The folder and then the other folder. It says folder and subfolder. That just means the type that it's coming from and then a subtype. So for correspondence, you have correspondence logs, you have letters to contractors, letters from contractors, letters to others, etc. So just note that with these little arrows, they're going to allow you to expand or contract, or you can just simply click on expand and that will expand everything, or the collapse, which will collapse everything. And again, search, use your friend. All right. Manually adding a document to the contract file. Sometimes there are occasions when the document package was already sent to PCF and you're like, oops, forgot to put this document package. How do we do that? Contract file. So you come into the contract file, you add a document package, or you add a contract, a document to the contract file. It's going to ask you where it is going to be associated with, what kind of document it happens to be, and you'll need to make sure you put it in the correct location. In this case, this one was pre-construction meeting minutes. So they've added a new document. Now, when you first come in and create it, before the document is added, you have these two buttons over here, which will be selectable, but nothing over here will be selectable. Once you either generate the document or select the document from your computer and add it to RMS, these will no longer be selectable, but these ones will open up to where you can edit it, remove it, view it, save it, whatever you need to do. Then you need to make sure you sign it after everything over here is updated. Now here, you can actually change the date of the document. Notice in the document packages, this date was not allowed to be changed. But in the contract file, you are allowed to change that. Just make sure you add the date in which it was uploaded and add a description if needed. Then you're going to sign the document. After you have signed the document, you have to complete the document and then send it to PCF, at which point you're done. And then here's some information about the statuses and things like that. Oh, and this is talking about everything that I just talked about earlier, just talking about how to edit, remove, and view the document. All right, the next module that you will run into is the contract setup module. So for the contract setup, when you go into contract setup, the tabs that you will be seeing is administration funding, payment modifications, quality assurance, submittals, schedules, and dredging. This is no longer here. It doesn't show up, so don't worry about it. As you can see, this information is showing down here. Ixnay that's not there. Now, inside of the administration funding tab, there's a couple of things in here that's very important. If your contract is using CFUMS, you need to make sure this is checked. If your contract is using CFUMS, you also need to make sure it is connected to the correct CFUMS database. There are times when the CFUMS database does not match the district's database. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So just make sure that the database is chosen correctly, so that way when you do the CFUMS download, you're good to go. If you don't know anything about this, I would suggest finding someone who has done more with RMS and check with them to see what the district's policy is on how to update this one, because this is going to be a district policy, which buttons and options to use. Now, I'm going to zoom in so we can see that one just a little bit better. There is this lovely little checkbox here that says allow government to enter contractor data. use this one sparingly, if at all, because you really should be making the contractor enter their own data because that is their job. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, so we have provided this option here in order for the government to enter data as if they are the contractor without logging in under contractor mode. Now, what you will know that if you attempt to change this checkbox from allow to not allow or not allowed to allow, it's going to prompt you for your username and password or your name and your PIN to verify that, yes, this is really something that you want to do. And this information is recorded within RMS, so we will know who did it and when they did it. So again, check with your district's policy about this information to see if this is something that you're actually going to want to be doing. The other thing to note on here, this is gone. As of December of last year, RMS 238 has been discontinued, so this information is no longer going to be available at that point in time. Okay. Ding. All right, payment modifications tab. So the things to note about the payment modifications tab is this information pretty much comes from CFOs. Everything that's showing up here, if you're a CFOMS linked contract, are going to show right here. This comes from CFOMS. RMS does not control this. CFOMS does that. And this is the information. What you fill out in here is going to be based off of your actual contract or your district or your office, depending on. So you'll have to take a look at that one. And of course, there's some lovely little information for you about all of these different things. One thing to know, progress payments allow additional earnings not included in activities. This is where you turn on that ability for the contractor to actually ask for money that is not in a pay activity. Whether or not you do that will be based on your office, district, and contract policies. Check with them to find out if that's what you want to do. Now, you also have the ability to include all activities on the prompt payment document. By default, RMS only includes the activities that are requested for that progress payment at that time on the prompt pay. However, you do have the option to override that by checking this box to show all of the activities, regardless of whether or not they're being paid. It's up to you and the district's policy to see which one it's going to be. All right. The quality assurance tab is where you're going to set up what type of QA/QC reports are done inside of RMS by using this blue lookup field. You have military or civil. Those are your options. They are different by slights, so you will want to check with your contract office district policy to find out which one you're going to be using. We also have the option for doing shifts as well as the time extensions due to unusually severe weather default. You stick them in here, but these can be updated if you need to. The Submittals schedules tab. Now, this is where you add an extra submittal registry if you need to by using the lovely little add button. However, check with your district's policy as to whether or not you're going to do that. You do have this checkbox down here allowing you to compute submittal needs based on activity schedule. If you want to use your submittal dates based off of the activity schedule, this is where you check that box. If you want submittal due dates based off of the submittal items and not the activity, then you will not have this box checked. You've got some review period days that are set up for your reference, and then who the default reviewer is and some other information. Now, down here is where you determine whether or not your contract is going to be using a NAS SDEF setup for importing their information, or if it's going to be manually set up. In this case, this was chosen for manually set up. If you choose to use the NAS, there's going to be a lovely little checkbox down here that's going to allow you to force the contractor to use the QC daily reports for the actual start and finish dates, but it will still pull in the scheduled start and finish dates from the SDEF file. All right, next module we're talking about is the P2 projects. For the P2 projects, this is where you add the P2 project, and this is where you, once the P2 project is added, you'll come in and take a look at the information showing up in these tabs down here at the bottom. Now, all of this information is coming from P2. So if something is not correct, then it's probably because it needs to go back to P2 for the milestones. Because the milestones, after, I think, contract award, it starts, RMS will push to P2. And then once project fiscal completion is entered in P2, then that communication stops. prior to the contract award, the milestones, if it's set up in the contract setup, will come from P2 to RMS. So, but the cost, time, growth, and the task status, that comes from P2. All right. So here is a display of what each of those tabs looks like. So you have that for your reference. Next, we have the correspondence. So if you need to talk to your contractor needs to talk to you, you've got correspondence. The only thing that I'm going to say about this is when you generate a letter or the contractor generates a letter, the numbering system is set H-something, S-something, or C-something. That can't be changed. Nobody can change that except for when you choose the add button, you're going to choose home office, well, contractor, home office, or side office. Or if it's government, it's going to default to C unless that allow government to enter contractor data shows up, and then it's going to ask you what kind of correspondence are you doing? So just to note, this H, S, and C cannot be changed. All right, in the correspondence view, this one's a little bit different. This one has the sort tiles that show up under each of the statuses, and under each of those statuses, their statuses of, well, excuse me, types. Each of the types, the status is in the type, and the number that shows up in each of them. And again, when you click on any of these sort tiles, what you will get is this will change to let you know what you're looking at. This is draft, this one. Now, if you click on sent answer required, draft becomes sent, all becomes answer required. And it will change the view that's showing up down here. As you can see right here, correspondence received, answer required. Done. Now, when you click on the add button, ignore the yellow for a second, what you will see are these white options. However, if you have allowed the government to enter contractor data, you will also see these yellow ones. Otherwise, you really shouldn't see those. All right. When you add a letter to the contractor, again, remember, it starts with C, and then you can update the number based off of whatever your district office policy happens to be, in what order it needs to go in. And then click OK. And now you can come in here and fill out your letter. Basically, you'll put in a letter summary, you'll add, and you put the letter actually in the document package. And if it is going to be select letters answered by this document. So if this was answered already, then you can click this little box here and it will populate here based off of the letters from other correspondence. If this is answering another one, or if you need an answer for this one, you choose these guys right here. And this will show the answered letter here, and this is answering this letter here. So if the question is in this letter, this is the question letter, these are the answer letters. Just remember that. Question on the left, answers in the middle and on the right. And of course, the document package. Again, with the document package, adding the documents. Again, adding all of the list of documents that have come in. Sign, next, choose the signature position, finish. And then when you're done, you have to click on complete package. At that point, it becomes closed and is sent off to PCF. And then when you want to finalize it, you need to make sure that the document package is status accepted, because that means it's sent to PCF. And then you need to change the status sent setting from draft letter not to complete to one of these ones, whichever it happens to be, letter approved or letter sent, depending on what status it's under at that point in time. And when it's done, you choosing letter sent, it's going to say, are you sure you're done? Because you can't change this. And you're going to say yes or no, depending on the choice. And then everything becomes uneditable at that point in time. And you are finished with that document correspondence. And then what you will see is it will now show up in the sent section under whatever option you chose. If you chose that the answer was required, it will show up here. If it was unresolved, it will show up here. Otherwise, all of them will show up in the all section. All right, this is talking about how to receive a letter from the contractor, and you've got some information that you're going. So you are answering the contractor, which means, remember, questions go here, answers go here. So if this is the answer, the question goes here. You're going to choose this option right here. All right, this is going through the process of adding the, oh, this one's using the generate template. So cool. we haven't talked about this. When you are in a document package as the government, you have the option to generate a letter based off of Word templates that were set up in your district. And when you click on that, it's going to bring up a lookup field for all of the Word template selections. You'll go through, pick the right one, click OK, and then it will ask you to edit it. You'll go through and edit whatever needs to be edited, or if it has like prompts, it'll prompt you, fill out this information, and then the document will be generated. And you will complete the document package as usual. Next, we move on to RFIs, request for information. This is some information for you about the RFIs. You can read that at your leisure. So here are some tips for the RFIs for government. When you open up an RFI, your default view is going to be on the contractor RFI. Now, note, if the contractor is not done with the RFI, you won't be able to see everything that's going on. So if you can't see anything when you go in there and the contractor said it was done, then that means they haven't finished it. You need to say, hey, make sure you sent that information so I can actually review it. If you are going to do a government RFI, then you need to go over to the government response. Or if you're responding to the contractor, you also need to go over to the government response after reviewing what the contractor sent. Now, on the government response, there are a couple of things that you have to fill out, which we will see on the next tab in further detail. Yeah. Some information that's hiding behind here are the dates that you'll need to set up. You'll have to review the document package that you, or add any documents to the document package here. Now, please note, this document package says government. What that means is anything that is put in this document package is only shared with the government. Nobody on the contractor side can see that. So if there's something that you want to share with the contractor, you have to go back to the contractor RFI tab and go to that document package. And that document package will say either shared or government. Keep that in mind. Oh, wait, before I forget. In order for the contractor to be able to see all of this information that you have put in here, with the exception of the documents in this document package, both of these checkboxes must be checked. If both of them are not checked, the contractor is not going to be able to see it. You say, hey, I sent you your response. They're going to click on this response and it's going to say government is not finished. So you'll need to go back in and make sure both of those are checked. Once they're checked, then the contractor can take a look at what you got. All right, contract user entries and special data. This is again for the Word templates. If you've got like a certain person's name who's always going to be entered, this is where you put that information in. And then of course you have the special purpose data, which we're not going to talk about today. The next most important thing is the prime contractor information. That is found in the prime contractor module. Now, this top part of the prime contractor module cannot be entered by the contractor. It must be done by the government. But everything underneath that can all be done by the contractor. Government doesn't have to fill out that information, but they must fill out, that the contractor must fill out this top information. So let me zoom in to show you a better view. Here we go. Now, one thing to note, payee office. The payee office comes from CFMS. If what you see in the payee office is not correct and your contract is linked to CFMS, you have to go to CFMS to correct it, because we pull that information from CFMS. So when you go to CFMS, correct it in CFMS, you get it right in CFMS, you come back to RMS and you click on the CFMS download in the contract finances module, it will populate in here. If it still doesn't populate in here, then that means something is not right in with the settings in CFMS. You'll have to go contact CFMS support and ask, hey, why is this information not showing? What did I miss? Because that needs to be set up correctly in order for it to be pulled inside of RMS. All right, NES code. So for the NES code, that is the North American Industry Classification System. We no longer use DUNS. Now we have updated it to UEI, and the information will be reflected inside here. It does not say copy DUNS. It will say copy UEI. So just know that when you're copying this, you're going to be copying the UEI information, which has to be entered in the district office area. That will be an advanced training. You can take a look at that one. We do have some UEI training that's going to be come up talking about that information. Be on the lookout. Go to our website at rms.usace.army.mil for dates when that stuff is going to be available. All right. Prime contractor, contractor staff. So this is where you can go to take a look at what is in the prime contractor. The first view that we were in was this one here, this tab. Now we're in the second tab. And this is going to show you a list of all of the contractors that have been added to the contract and whether or not they have admin privileges. The first staff member for a contract must be added by the government. Otherwise, they can't get in and they can't do anything. And the first user has to be an administrator unless the government wants to be the one that is going to control all of the user permissions, set up all that kind of stuff. Check with your district's policy as to how to do that, but just remember that at least one user needs to be added with admin privileges in contractor mode so they can add all the other users. All right, subcontractors. There's a little bit of information about subcontractors. Whether or not your contract uses subcontractors is going to be dependent upon your district policy, your office policy, and the contract itself. So check with those to find out if you're using subcontractors. The subcontractors are going to be entered by the contractor. He's going to put all of this information in. One thing to note about this. If your contract is using an SDF file and the scheduling software that the contractor is using decides to change the responsibility code for the subcontractors on the activities, you'll get duplicates. So make sure you inform the contractor to double check their SDF file in the SDF file portion of RMS and make sure they don't have any duplicate responsibility codes. They need to have exactly the same responsibility codes which are in the subcontractors. Otherwise, they'll get duplicates and then they'll scratch their head and wonder why they have so many freaking subcontractors when they don't actually have that many subcontractors. All right. In the subcontractor edit view, what is most important in here, because this is all done by the contractor, is this information down here at the bottom. The contractor is going to be the one that's going to set up whether or not payroll is required. If payroll is required, then this payroll ending day of week, this also applies to the prime contractor, should be set before work starts and don't change it. If it's on a Sunday, it stays on a Sunday, because otherwise you'll end up getting duplicates and that can cause some confusion. It's not going to cause any problems. It's just going to be confusing because you'll have in some places where you've got multiple Sundays, a Sunday or a Saturday, like right next to each other. You're like, why do I have that? So make sure these set it once, don't touch it. All right, contractor insurance. If your contract is tracking contractor insurance, this is going to be the module where it comes. There's some information that is talking about here, what is tracked in that, but this is what it looks like. You have ones with all sort tiles showing up here to show you what kind of sorts you're looking for and the counts of each of these. All of this is set up in either the prime contractor info all the way down at the bottom or the subcontractor edit view all the way down at the bottom, right above where it said contractor payrolls. Here, let me back up. This button, insurance required. Clicking this box will allow the subcontractor or contractor to show up on the screen right here. So keep that in mind. Now, when you edit a contractor's insurance, you have the ability to put these dates in here as well as add all of the documents in this document package. And then if there is an SF 1413, that date goes here. This is what the 1413 looks like. And then, of course, you have to go into the document package, review it, make sure everything looks good, it's signed, what needs to be signed, sign anything that needs to be signed, and then when it's done, this is what I was talking about earlier. The contractor neglected to submit this document package to the government. So this is why you see submit for review. Just go to the contractor and tell them to fix that. Once they click this button, then you will have the accept or return for corrections at that point in time. Okay, now we're on to tracking contractor payrolls in RMS. So this is something new that we've added. You have the ability to stop the tracking of the contractor payrolls based off of these milestones' actual date and some other days that are showing up in here. So if you know that 60 days after final payment is made, they're no longer going to be able to do any more payrolls, then you put a 60 in here. If you know that 5 days before the final payment is made, they're not going to be able to do any more payrolls, then you come in here and you put a -5 and you select this option right here. And then once you put an actual date into that milestone, 5 days before that actual date, the payrolls will stop generating an RMS. All right, so inside contractor payrolls, the only way this will populate is if the first day on site date is entered for the contractor or subcontractor, which you can find by clicking on this button up here at the top. Also, the track payrolls is checked for the contractor and the subcontractor, and the NTP actual date has been entered into the contract. At that point, a contractor must log in contract mode who has administrative rights on the contract and open up contractor payrolls. And payrolls will automatically start generating at that point. And of course, you can sort through all those. You can edit them by clicking on this guy or just double clicking on what's here. Again, you have your sort tiles running across the top. When you go through and you review a contractor's payroll, once they have submitted it to you, you're going to look at the information up at the top. You're going to look at any documents they have down at the bottom. At the bottom, we have a revision history. So say you returned it to them and they returned it back, and you returned it to them and you returned it back. You'll see all of that stuff down here at the bottom. Once you have decided you like it, you click on the payroll accepted checkbox. If there's a document package, make sure you accept that as well. Or you click on payroll rejected because something is not right, and then let the contractor know here, hey, this is not right, please fix it. All right, labor interviews. This is the next one that you've got going on here. You've got your add, edit, and delete. If you're going to be using labor interviews for the contract, check with your district's policy. But if you do, go ahead and use this the area right here. Now, please note, if you are not logging in with a CAC, you log in with an email and password, you need to have the correct permissions set up inside of RMS in order to view this section right here, as well as the payrolls. So if you log in with an email password, you need to prove that you have had your PII training. And that information needs to go to a PII admin who will enter the correct permissions inside of RMS. So if you open this up and it says, "School do not have sufficient permission," you need to contact your PII admin. There is a link on SharePoint on the government network, which will give you all of that information. I don't know what it is off at the top of my head, but you will need to contact the PII admin for your district in order to get that added. If you want to know that information and you can't find it, you can always submit a ticket to the support desk, and what we can do is we can send that link to you because we do have that. I just don't know it off the top of my head. Adding a labor interview, this is what it's going to look like when you go in through and add it. What you put in here is going to be dependent upon your district's policy, but you have the ability to use a lookup field for looking for a specific person, and a lookup field for looking at what it was that you were interviewing and other information that you can put in here. And of course, you have the option of if it was unresolved, resolved, or not. All right. I'm going to go ahead and open this up for about 30 seconds for questions. If you have if it takes longer than 30 seconds, that's fine, but I'm going to be quiet for 30 seconds. And then we're going to take a 5-minute break to go ahead and change presenters. So are there any questions about the section we just talked about?
Greetings. My name is Matthew Rackham, and I am just one of the dedicated help desk associates here at the RMS Support Center. And I'd like to welcome you to Submittals. So here in the Submittal tab, we have a couple of sections that we're going to go through. And once again, if you're not able to stick with us or anything like that, please just pay attention to our YouTube site. We will post that up here shortly, 5 days after. So going into Submittals here. Once you open the contract, you will click on the Submittals tab, and this will present you with the options for our 4 modules within Submittals. The first 2 modules, specification sections and submittal register, they need to be set up prior to being able to work within the transmittal log module. Once they have been set up, you will be able to focus your attention on the module where all the magic happens. So that we are starting here with the submittal register, you'll see that we have 3 versions of predefined sections for you to choose from. The 1995, the 2004, and the 2014 versions. These are kept within the district library. When you are creating your submittal specifications for the contract, you just have to click on the Add button, and then you will have the option to populate your specifications manually from the different versions or import them. I would suggest that you import into this section because it allows for the automation to do its job. However, please ensure that you are following any guidelines outlined in your district policy when working in this module. This right here is a view of the submittal register. Up in the top right, we have our viewing tiles to get a quick snapshot of what is happening within the module. Here we have a demonstration of how to use the filtering options once again from any of the column headers. And then the most important part is over here on the right, the status. Finally, down at the bottom of the screen, not currently shown here in this slide though, you will see the history of each submittal selected. Now, to edit the submittal items, all you need to do is double click on the item or just select it and choose the edit button at the top left of the data grid. Once you have imported items into the specification sections module, most of these fields will be automatically entered for you. However, if you are in this area, you can edit most of that imported information about the submittal items. As you can see, this is where you can edit all of the pertinent official information that relates to the submittal. Now, the start date may not have an editable field. And what drives that is the checkbox that you selected on the contract setup about submittal schedules, whether or not the dates are to be computed upon activity schedules or not. That would be back in the contract setup. If your district policy has you select this option within the contract setup, it actually helps you when it comes to this section because then you don't have to worry about the start date. And if it was set correctly, it's already been calculated for you. So now we see here what is present when you enter the transmittal log module. The first view in the data grid will be the transmittal in review. Typically, you will be selecting the pending government receipt filter box, and then you can enter the date in the date received by government field, which will move the transmittal from a pending government receipt to transmittals in review. Once you're there, you'll be able to open them up and check the contents of the document packages. Once you have the transmittal open, you can view the document package and check all of the items within that package just to make sure that they're correct. As you have seen here in the screen, there is a view that you will have when reviewing a document package. RMS will identify what and how many of each type of files are contained within this package up here at the top. And once you have completed your review of these items, you can either accept the package or return for corrections. If returning the package, it is a really good idea to annotate what is wrong with this package here in this field. However, please ensure that you are, once again, following the guidelines set forth in your district and office policies. Also, when you are returning a document package, you have the option from the previous screen to this document package screen. There is a button on that screen for you to return the transmittal and everything within it. You don't have to enter the date on that page, so that's a little bit of a good feature there. Additionally, if you are completing the transmittal, there is a checkbox right there in the middle of the screen within the government for you to select it and apply the QA codes and sign the 4025s. please select that checkbox when you click on the Apply QA Codes and Sign 4025 button. That will complete everything that you need for it. However, if the contractor has failed to digitally sign their 4025, it is important to note that you will most likely need to print and then manually sign the 4025, and then you can select that option, which again is on the previous page from this. There is a button in that same section. It just says manually attach, and it'll give you the option once you click on that to select the item, wherever you have it stored or scanned to, and then upload it into there and finish up your document package. For more details on submittals, please review our great YouTube tutorials. You can access them by going to the RMS homepage and then selecting the RMS help videos. When you are searching for a specific item, though, don't use the search box at the top of the page, but use the one that's under the corpse logo. At the end of the tabs, the home, video, playlist, community, channels, about, right there over there on the right, that's the search box you want to look for so you can search all the items within our YouTube channel. Are there any questions? All right. So it seems that we are all good, and we're just going to drive on through into the QA/QC tab. What you see here is a summary of the things that we are going to review in the QA/QC tab. Please note that this is not every module listed here within the tab, and that since this is a beginner's training, we won't be going down the rabbit hole too much on each module. This is more of an overview of the tab, the modules within the tab, and the functions of each module. This is where you locate it when you open up your contract. And as you can see, these are the modules that you have within the QA/QC tab for your review at your leisure. Now, getting started with the QA daily reports, here we have a summary of what typically is recorded within this module. Here is a view of the actual module itself. As it is with most sections, you can see the groupings of the various QA reports here up at the top. A quick review of the provided data grid will show us that the report number, the QA report date for that individual report, any information about weather delays from the QA weather report, the QA report status, and the QC report status, if it contains any signed documents, and finally, the PCF status of that individual report. You may have noticed the ability that it has been added to sign multiple daily reports. To do this, just select the button, then choose the reports you want to sign, and continue with the prompts to apply the digital signature to the reports selected. Now, this is a view of a QA daily report. Once you have selected it and chose either the add to create this new one, or just chose one that was already existing in the data grid and then selected the edit button. Each QA report has 8 sections annotated here on the left of the screen to segregate each item to its specific data entry. In the middle area will be a summation of each of the areas for your review, which is currently covered by the preview of the QA report. And down at the bottom yet is another place for you to add any document packages that pertain to any of the sections within this QA report. The button up on the top right will allow you to view a snapshot of the QA daily report completed at the time. This will not have any signatures on there. If you are reviewing, but you really want to see the QA daily report with the signatures, then you have to view that inside the document package. Now, here we have the first step within the QA daily report, and that is the weather section. You're just going to open that up and enter whatever applicable information is there. This is also predetermined by whether you select military or civil data entry. Now, when you back out of the section or save, it takes you back to the summary screen. And then we can move on to the next one that was down the list, the QA narratives. Now, selecting the QA narrative section will allow you to add whatever narrative you need for that QA daily report. Please check with your district policies to determine what the narratives are mandatory for each report and what narratives are just optional or that you need to put in there. This is an example of the screen that opens once you select a narrative or create your narrative. And in this screen, it allows you to edit or add any additional comments to complete any of the other fields as dictated by your district policy. This is a view of the QA deficiencies section, the next one down on our list here. And it will keep a track of any revisions to the QA deficiencies. As I'm sure we all know, contractors will have updates to this section, but you can track them with the revision history box at the bottom of the screen. Here we have a screen capture of what you should expect to see when you open up the QA test section from the QA Daily Reports main page there. And moving on, in the QA final follow-ups, here is what we see when we open up that section by clicking it on from the left side of our menu. Please ensure that you are utilizing this section in accordance with your district policy once again. Otherwise, QA final follow-ups are completed after the contractor has marked a definable feature of work, or DFOW, to be complete. Now here is a screenshot from the QA daily report. This is what appears when you click on the QC requirements section. As you will note, the QA will check either the concur or reissue box for the QC requirement. More specifically, stuff like the QC test, installed property, user schools, and transferred property. This seventh section is the labor interviews. You set it all up in the contract setup, and then this is where we put in where the rubber meets the road here. Once executed, you'll be using the standard form, or SF 1445. The labor interviews can be annotated here in this section for the QA daily report for this specific given date. Moving on to section 8, we have the last section of the QA daily report, and this is the mishap reporting section that opens up to this screen. Here you'll be able to record any mishaps that occurred during that date, and it's the responsibility of the PE or the QA to attach the individual safety report to the document package located right here. Once all sections have been completed and entered and reviewed for accuracy, you can click on the report completed, as you'll see in the next slide, and the document packages folder will be automatically created with the QA daily report added to it. To sign the QA daily report, you must open that document package and select the documents that you want to sign. In addition, you can add any additional documents there, such as QA test results, photos, or any other audit evidence. The QA report is prepared for each on-site visit. As you see here, we want to make sure whether using the multi-signing or the individual signing that the QA reports are signed in order. First, the preparer, then the approver. If perchance you are using the multi-sign feature, you don't have to sign each document package of each report that you're completing. Just go through the process of signing the multiple reports at the same time. That can be found in our advanced training or even on one of our YouTube tutorials. Once you have finished signing the documents in either way, then they will be automatically sent off to PCF for safekeeping. Please note that this is the contractor. We can determine that because there are the gold tiles across the top instead of blue. We still have the sort tiles at the top and the add, edit, and delete buttons. Once they complete a QC daily report, the QA will be able to view the contractor's officially signed QC daily report in the documents package folder and determine if it's acceptable or needs to be returned. Now, if it's not visible to you, then it hasn't been sent off. Here is the QC summary module. Now, this module allows you to kind of get a bird's eye view of the QAs and QCs and their associated statuses. By clicking on one of the squares, the information pertaining to that square or that sort box will be displayed in the data grid below. Don't worry, the title will change above the data grid depending on whichever data sort box you choose. Weather delays, very important area there because it can affect contract. This module is only on the government side for that purpose, and it will report once a month and after all the data has been accumulated for that month. Any disagreements between the weather delays or the numbers displayed here must be resolved by the QA and the QC of that individual contract. If you select one of the monthly items from the previous screen, you'll then be able to see a calendar of all the recorded information pertaining to weather delays. If there is a conflict on a date, you'll be able to determine this by a red notification on the calendar shown for the date of the conflict. Then all you need to do is select the date from here to get to another screen to enter whether or not the conflicting report has been resolved. When you are done with reviewing the month, just click on the radio button down here in the bottom left to indicate that the review is complete. Definable features of work. This module is typically populated automatically with information from the SDEF file. You also have an opportunity to add items here manually and edit them to some extent and possibly delete them if you have the permissions. Please note that a contractor can only delete a DFOW if it is not tied to an inspection checklist. Now, there is a lot of information here on this slide for you to read at your own leisure. In order for the three-phase inspections to populate, the DFOW must be complete. Here is just an overview that you can double-click on any of the inspections and set the dates for the preparatory checks, the initial checks, and any follow-up checks. But what you are seeing here is a tally of the actual numbers of inspections for given its specific type for each feature. More information about features of work and inspections can be found in our YouTube channel tutorials whenever you're available. Hazard analysis, great section. This is what you see when you open up the hazard analysis module. You will see a listing of any hazard analysis as well as any legacy hazard analysis. This screen will provide you the name of the AHA and the status and the approver. Double clicking on any of the AHAs will open it up for you to see the description, the feature of work or FOW that is attached to, and the document package for that specific AHA. All QC requirements module right here, you will have the sort tiles that run along the top once again with the add, edit, and delete buttons in the data grid. Selecting a QC requirement will show you what information is currently available about that requirement down here at the bottom of your screen. When the contractors have completed their tests and they are unable to change the status from QC test to pass or fail or whatever have you, when they're looking at the screen, they need to open the correct QC daily report that the test was completed on and annotate that date and action occurred there. Then it will populate here. In this next module, equipment checks, this is when a contractor brings any type of maintainable equipment to the site. The equipment information must first be entered within this module so that it can be populated and tracked in the individual QC daily reports. Then moving on into exposure hours, we will see what is given as a roll-up of the exposure report that is submitted at the beginning of each month by the contractor. The contractor is to enter all of these hours in the QC daily reports. Again, once it comes from the QC daily reports, it will populate over to here. This is so you, as the government, can just see the summation of everything. Once again, as the government rep, you will enter this module to view all the summaries, update the overall statuses by selecting in review, hours accepted, or hours not accepted, return to contractor for corrections. If this option is selected, the government rep will be able to enter in comments about this area and send it back to the contractor. It's very important that you advise them what they are doing right and what they are doing wrong. Now, another module I would like to show you here is the QA test module. The QA tests are completed to verify the results of the QC test results. So it's a control activity to ensure that we are upholding a quality standard. You will notice that there is no document package folder in this module. The QA test report and its supporting documents should be added to the document packages for each of the specified QA daily reports when they occurred. And now we are moving into the required verifications module. If you have a QC verification that you want to set as required, such as something within installed property, QC test, transfer property, and user school, this is the place for you to see what is the overall status. Each option in the data grid will allow you to expand, and you should be able to pull up information when selecting the individual sections. And our last module here that we were going to talk about in the QA/QC section will be planned interviews. Now, this module allows you to indicate and schedule planned interviews for each contractor and subcontractor. Super. Are there any questions about the QA/QC tab? Silence is golden. So we're going to move on into progress payments, the most fun, if not important, part of any contract, getting people paid. So Now, this module is going to be more specifically talking about the contractor pay worksheet instead of all of the items in there. And what are the basic steps to add, edit, evaluate a pay request. When you have time, please go back and check on YouTube tutorials on our channel. They will have more in-depth lead through in a live presentation there to show you what to do. As you can see, we have the contractor pay request worksheet. And here's the basics of what are going to be outlined in that worksheet. Now, in order to print the contractor pay request worksheet, you will need to open up the contract and select the contract reports tab. Once you have this tab open, it will allow you to search or expand the grid until you can find the finance report. But once again, as Jen said, searching is your friend. That search field will pick up all matches of whatever you put in there. Now here is the worksheet. Once it's been opened, you will get this document and it will list all of the activities that are associated with the contractor and any involved amounts. Here, with this piece of information, you can have a meeting with your contractor to review the worksheet and determine how much they can ask for within this invoice. But yet again, it is entirely up to the primary guidance laid down in your district policy as to whether or not you will be using this worksheet or what other steps you need to take prior to a contractor requesting or completing an invoice. All right. To get a progress payment started, you will need to navigate to the Finance tab and then select the progress payment module down here on the left. In order for you to get all the information that you need and for everything to work right, you need the actual NTPD will need to be entered, as well as all of the activities will need to be balanced. And in addition, it's a great idea to have an updated SDEF imported. But most importantly, for us to do any work in here, the contractor will need to complete the actual invoice. Please pay attention to any contract modifications completed prior to a progress payment. This is simply because if the mod may have unbalanced several of the activities, as we just learned, it needs to be balanced. And if you have to be doing a mod while an invoice is being processed, it is my advice to just wait until the completion of the invoice and then enact your contract modification. Here we see when you open up the module, there will be a data grid of all the past and current progress payments. You may have a contractor reach out to you stating that they cannot process a pay request because of an error that the finances are properly balanced. This will need to be addressed in their NAS, their Network Analysis Schedule. This is the software they use. I'm sure we're all aware to manage their projects such as Primavera, Microsoft Project, etc. But for those requirements, please refer to whatever contract documents are stipulating what type of scheduling software they use. When you come upon any errors within the progress payment, if needed, please submit a ticket to the help desk right away. We all need to address these issues with the utmost importance. Otherwise, interest could be generated if not paid promptly. Now, when you are ready to edit a progress payment, just double click on it or select it and then click the edit button in order to open it up. Here on the Invoices tab is where we will start out of the progress payment. The progress payments are locked down with only one user at a time being able to function in there. This is important that you know this, because we don't want to have multiple people in an invoice editing stuff in there that could be causing changes that others are not aware of. It is important that you look at the payee office to verify that is the correct information. This information will be automatically populated from a CFMS download. But in order to have the CFMS download properly, the correct options must be chosen in the contract setup module, and the contract description must have the correct contract number and delivery orders. Everything must be set right in those beginning steps to download CFMS. If the address is incorrect, once again, as Jen mentioned, it will need to be updated in CFMS. And then you can complete another CFMS download to update this field. Over here, you can select the buttons to either edit the payment priority, the payment terms, or return the invoice to contractor for corrections. Whatever you do within this area, please ensure that you are following your district policy. Now, some of the common errors with invoices are either not all the dates are entered, a pay period from and through dates are incorrect, the payment invoice date is before the pay period through date, the invoice received date is not the same or later than the payment invoice date. So bottom line up front, RMS will not complete the ENG 93 if there are any logical errors with these dates. Now, when you click on that payment priority button, this is the view that appears. Normally, this is not an issue unless other than pre-planned payments of obligations is selected in the contract setup, but the option is available for only in very rare funding cases, so we can get in here and change whatever we need to change. This is the payment terms button from that invoice screen that will pop up. It is to show that you can check the payment terms to determine when the contract will be paid. And if this information can only be changed in CFMS and updated here with a CFMS download. So please make sure that stuff is correct in CFMS. Now we are going to move on to requested activity earnings. Within this tab of the invoice, you as the government rep will have the option to review what the contractor is requesting within this actual invoice. Yet on this tab, you will not have the ability to edit anything. Your necessary work is going to be in the allowed activities earning tab. If you are not in agreement here on the allowed activities earning tab with whatever the contractor is requesting, you do have the option of making changes here. However, it is best practice to return the invoice for corrections and then have a discussion with the contractor about the amounts they are requesting so that you can avoid altering any information in this tab. Yet again, please assure that you are following the district policy. If you come upon a contractor and you're having very big conflicts with them and they refuse to make any adjustments there, this is why we are allowed to edit these areas right here. All right, subcontractor earnings. Pretty important place here. The column header is kind of a misnomer over here in the right side, because when it comes to subcontractors, if the contractor is going to withhold any funds from them, they must first check in with their government rep and have it authorized. The reason why is because it says that the funds are going to be deducted by the contractor. Well, it's really the government. The contractor is not authorized to hold any funding. That's the government's job. The government is the money man. Within this section, you can see the previous amounts and the total allowed to date. And this will calculate the amounts allowed for this period. Down in the bottom, you will have a brief interview or brief perspective of whatever contract line item you select. If you are allowed or if the contractor is allowed any additional earnings outside the contract, then that will go here into the additional earnings tab. Again, check with your district policy about that. But a point of note is that the calculation method down here at the bottom. Most contracts will be using the standard calculation as long as the RMS CLINs are tied to the CFM standard line items. We have a YouTube tutorial on how to identify this and fix it, but if it comes down to it, this is where you can go in here and you can select. Instances that might require you to use a periodic calculations are if RMS is putting the amounts into the wrong obligations, because the RMS CLINs could possibly be tied to a modification that is tied against the CFM's line item. So if the obligations, basically, if the obligations don't distribute correctly on the obligations tab, then the periodic calculations may be the viable option for you. Again, reference your district policy for this. When you click on that drop-down box, you'll be able to get a more in-depth description here listed for what is a standard and what is a periodic calculation. Now, the last step is to click for the total allowed earnings for this pay period. Once you click that on this additional earnings tab, you are able to move into the obligations tab. If you do not click that little checkbox, when you go to the obligations tab, it will tell you, no, there's something ain't done right. You got to go back and do it. The obligations tab will not open up and populate any kind of information for you until that additional earnings checkbox has been elected. Here in the obligations is where we're going to verify the monies that are going to the correct line items. You will also be allowed to calculate any deductions, retainages, or possible refunds for this period in this section. And any errors that you find will present themselves over here in this gray box. Once you have completed everything in this section and you can see that all stuff are balanced and deductions are calculated, retainages, refunds are all calculated, you can select the ENG 93 completed checkbox. But please note that this is not the end. You must go over here to the document packages tab, and in order to check the audit evidence, this can be done by opening up the government package and looking at all the different items within there, which we'll see in the next slide, and verifying that they're all done. Once here, you open the package, you'll be able to view the items by selecting on the item and then clicking on View Document. If something needs to be signed, then you can go through with the process by selecting it and clicking on the Sign Elected Documents. If it needs to be manually signed because of a district policy or some other reason that would require a manual signature, you can elect that button there. If you want to save the document to the file, that means saving it to your computer. Once you are done with the document package, everything has been signed, you can go ahead and complete the package by clicking on that button. Now, something very important to talk about here is signature. When you're putting your signature on a document, you will have the option to select the place for preparer or select the place for approver. If you're the preparer and you happen to select approver, it's going to put your signature in the approver's box. And then once the approver comes by and selects the same place, it's going to be a signature on top of a signature. And nobody just wants to see that. So after you've entered all the signatures needed into that document package, go ahead and click on the Complete Package button. And that will take us back here to the Document Package tab, which we will now be able to see that things are signed and accepted. Once you see that they're signed and accepted, please ensure that you're checking the contractor's document package as well. It is important note that you get in there and look and make sure everything is signed and completed and accepted before clicking back to the Obligations tab. Now that we have everything done in the government and the contractor package, when we've clicked back to the Obligations tab, everything is signed, everything is saved, everything is correct, we can finally click on that magic button, send to payment to CFOs. This one, it'll send you a prompt to authenticate that you are the actual individual pressing the button. If you want to find out any more information about how it pertains to CFOs payments being uploaded to CFOs, just select the logs button up here in the top right. That will show the process, the status of where everything is going digitally. Also, it is important to note that if you do not have a user ID in CFOs, don't press that send to CFOs button. If you press the send to CFOs button and you don't have a CFOs user ID, it's going to generate an error. All that work will be for naught. Now, right next to the logs button up here in the top right, there is the reports button. When you click on the reports button, you'll get this little screen here that pops up, and you can select any preview of the reports at any time throughout this process of this invoice. The caveat to that is that whenever you select a report, it will only show whatever's been done on that report. If you're looking for a completed report, you got to go back and look at the reports after you have completed the document package, or go into the document package and pull it up. This is a preview of that first selection, the prompt payment report, for your reference. Here we have a preview of the ENG 93 on page 1. And again, what is displayed on here depends on what the report, when the report is viewed. Pages 2 and 3. And then the contract file. This is to show any documents that were attached to the payment that would be added to the contract file. If there is any, they would populate here. Now, once you are all done, you can go ahead and click that fourth option is to select the check. This will show the completed payment information from CFOs. Please note that this will not populate anything. It'll be completely blank until CFOs has accepted and processed the payment. Once a check has been processed or the payment has been processed, then you will see a check there, which you can actually click on and pull up a screenshot of whatever the check looks like. So, are there any questions with progress payments? Hey, I just want to thank you all for your time and attention during this. What we have here are some resource links at the end of this PowerPoint slide. Again, YouTube tutorials are on our channel. They're great to have. Please, if you have any questions, post them in the Q&A there. We'd be glad to answer them, or just go ahead and voice them out right now, and we'll be glad to do whatever you need to get this use selected. If you ever have any problems, just feel free to contact the RMS support desk.
I did notice somebody asked a question for the slides. These slides will be posted on our website shortly. They are normally posted before the trainings actually happen, but there were some issues with uploading this time. So they will be posted this time, and they will be posted shortly. So if they're not there tonight, try tomorrow night. They will be up there as soon as we can get them up there. What you can see right now is my screen. I'm showing you our website so that way you know where to go to get help and stuff. One of the things to think about is when you go onto our website, rms.usafe.army.mil, you've got a support option down here. This is where you can submit a ticket to us. You can also click on this one for getting a ticket to the help desk if you have any issues. Also, you have any notes if you have any outages. We'll have some posts for that on there. All of the training information, date and slide posts for that will show up on this section right here. For information on using our service desk for being able to submit a support ticket, some of that video, the video is here for how to go through it, and to be able to get to it is from this link at this point. All of our release notes, anytime we put out a new release into RMS, we also post release notes. So if you want to know what the changes are, you can come to this release notes tab, open up the PDF file, and see what changes have been made to RMS at that time. Documentation can be found here, and if you want help with the tutorials, you can click on this RMS help videos, and that's going to take us to our YouTube channel where you can go use the search box, the search option right here to search for something specific. You can look at the videos themselves, or you can go to the playlist. Now, for this particular training, we will have that listed in the webinars training, and you can click on the view full playlist to see all of the trainings that we have done in the past. And this one, of course, will be about 5 business days. It will be loaded up onto YouTube. And as a reminder, on our YouTube channel, we are always creating new tutorial YouTubes for RMS to be able to make your job easier and things done. So every month, we'll post at least 4 new videos onto our YouTube channel. So make sure you check every month to see if there's anything new. If there are any topics that you want to see on that YouTube channel, please go ahead and submit a ticket letting us know which topic you would like to see in that channel, and we'll be more than happy to help that out. Now, I'm going to go ahead and check the chat to see if we have any other questions that haven't been answered. And if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and unmute your mic. You can go ahead and ask those questions now. We'll talk about that at this point. We also have lots of time to do a demonstration or a live demonstration if you would like to see that. So let us know if you need anything. Okay, since no one has any more questions, we're going to go ahead and pass this back to our RMS PMO. If you'll wrap it up for us.
Alrighty, well, thank you all. Again, if you have questions, do feel free to email us, the PMO, or even the RMS Support Center, and we can help you out and get that answer for you. I thank you for attending, and keep an eye out for some new trainings on the YouTube channel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.